One of my favorite guys to talk hoop with. He's Pac-12 Networks and Fox Sports' very own. Proud Stanford Cardinal. Casey Jacobson with us here on the Bill Riley Show. Hey, Case.
Hey, Bill. Dude, you're going to be in Vegas without me this week, and I'm so bummed because Fox has suspended all unnecessary travel. So we're doing the studio show in L.A., so, man, I'm not going to be there.
So you'll just have to drive up the 405 from Orange County to do your thing and not drive over to Las Vegas.
That's right, but I'm missing my favorite pizza spot in the entire world, the pizza at Cosmo. If you haven't been to it, go. It's called Secret Pizza.
Secret Pizza at Cosmo?
Yeah. It's actually not called Secret Pizza. It's called nothing. There's no name on it. There's no, you just have to go there and say, hey, how do I get to Secret Pizza? And they'll direct you. It's on the second floor. Trust me. You won't regret it.
Well, trust me, the next time you go back to Vegas, one of my favorite sushi places in the world is in a strip mall right across the street from the Hard Rock. It's unbelievable. Okay. It's called Gaizan Sushi, and it's open till 4 in the morning, and the sushi is off the charts good. So try that.
All right. I'm on it.
All right. Very good. All right. So we just found out Booth Gotch was named Pac-12 Player of the Week. He's finally gotten things straightened out, his game, his injuries, everything. Utah's needed him the last 2 games. Now, they didn't win at Cal last week, but he played great. Then he had a career game against Colorado, sent it to overtime, and made the 3 free throws in OT to beat the Buffs. And I think it couldn't have come at a better time for the Utes.
No question. I mean, without Ryland Jones, right, they needed somebody to not only create for others, and he had 4 assists in that game, but also create for himself on a night where Timmy Allen didn't really play well, wasn't his normal self. I thought Booth, this isn't new to me, Bill. I've seen Booth at his his peak, like he was against Colorado or for stretches against Kentucky.
Yep.
He pops and you watch him. Then there are other nights where he doesn't pop at all. In fact, we call these guys double agents. So they absolutely can take over a game and help you win a game that you wouldn't otherwise get. But he can also shoot you out of a game, or he's so wild that he'll turn the ball over, or he's not locked in. For the example, when Utah lost to UCLA, I thought they should have beat UCLA, but Gotcha had 5 turnovers and was missing everything and just forcing and pressing. So, you got to take the good with the bad. But, man, if Booth can he's not going to drop 28 points every game. He's not even going to drop 20 every game. But if he can give you 15 and he can give you 5 boards and 3 assists, now we're talking. Now we're talking about a player who next year could be an all-conference candidate and could really take this team, I don't think this year, but next year to the NCAA tournament. I mean, him, Timmy Allen, Ryland Jones, better Brandon Carlson. I like the pieces here.
Well, you don't forget Jan Tunen's in that mix as well, plus the great recruiting class they've coming in. No, I'm with you on that. I think the difference, though, in Booth the last 2 games, Casey, is he's not settling for jump shots. His best game is when he's playing downhill. He's got that quickness, the ability to turn the corner, the length as well. He didn't settle for jump shots at Cal. He didn't settle for jump shots against the Buffs on Saturday, and as a result, he got to the line, hit 8 of 9 free throws. He did make a couple of outside shots, but he didn't settle for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, growing up in Southern California, I had 2 older brothers who played, and so the standard for me was pretty high. But one of the things my dad, Vaughn Jacobson, always told me, Bill, is, hey, your brother, watch your older brothers and watch how they settle for too many jump shots. And, yeah, they're good jump shooters, but you're bailing out the defense often when you settle for jump shots. And I know that I was known for shooting threes at Stanford, but if you actually remember my career and you watch film, I tried to get to the bucket as often as I possibly could. In fact, oftentimes it was my number one priority was can I get to the basket? And when Booth gets to his right hand and when he attacks a gap, as long as nobody's coming over to try and take a charge, he is one of the better drivers on the wing in the Pac-12 conference. And I mean that when I say it. Alonzo Verge comes to mind as another guy who attacks gaps super aggressively. The jump shot should be kind of the second option in most most players on the wing. Getting to the basket, shooting layups, and shooting free throws should be priority number one. I learned that from my dad.
Talking to Casey Jacobson of Fox Sports. He's not going to be in Vegas this week. He's doing Fox Sports work. They'll do it from the studio. Pac-12 Network will be in Las Vegas this week. We're going to find out, I think, in the next half hour or so, the Pac-12 postseason awards. I put mine on paper this morning. I tweeted them out. My player of the year to me is very easy. I went with Peyton Pritchard. Mick Cronin, my coach of the year. I went with Bryce Wills as my defensive player of the year. My freshman of the year, Okongwu, and my sixth man, Alonzo Verge. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue there. Peyton Pritchard had the player of the year probably a month ago. Remy Martin made a push when Arizona State as a team was making a push, and he was at the forefront of that, but they, kind of fizzled out a little bit. And just, Remy wasn't special enough, especially against Washington, to even make that a contest. I like Verge as the sixth man of the year. That one's a tough one because guys are always starting and then, coming off the bench and then starting again or coming off bench. That's always a fluid situation.
Right.
Because I think at maybe the first month of the 2 months of the season, it was Lucas Seward for Colorado that was leading all bench players in scoring. But yeah, that was when Alonzo Verge was starting. So no problem there. He's been an incredible a weapon off the bench for Bobby Hurley's team. We have to give Mick Cronin this award, this coaching award, what he's done. And I know they lost at the buzzer against USC. They should have won that game, by the way. Made too many mistakes at the end of the game. But what he did with that team was truly remarkable. I called 5 UCLA games this year, including 3 in the non-conference build, and they were a train wreck in the non-conference. And I wasn't sure at all if they would find themselves. They couldn't see the forest through the trees at that point. But what he's done with, a talented roster, but not an overly talented roster, for them to finish second, what an accomplishment there. But some other coaches, I think, deserve some mention. Bill, I think what Mark Fox has done in his first year at Cal,
I agree,
has been pretty impressive. Remember, they only won 2 games last year in the conference, and they're at 7-11, tied with Utah and Oregon State. I thought he did a fantastic job and helped kind of raise the profile of the entire Pac-12 conference, as well as Kyle Smith, his first year at Washington State. I thought they were a tough team, despite injuries, despite not having more than maybe 2 players on offense to go to. So I'm excited about the future of the conference, not just because of the players, but the coaches.
Talking to Casey Jacobson here on the Bill Riley Show today. Conference tournament begins on Wednesday. Utah's got the very first game, and it's a winnable game for them. It really is. They split with Oregon State this year. They've got a little momentum, feeling pretty good about things, after the win on Saturday. I don't know if they'll have Ryland or not this week. It'll be really probably a game day, game time decision. I wouldn't count on it based on where he was, but they beat Colorado at home without him the other day, so we'll see what happens. What do you make of that Oregon State-Utah 8-9 matchup?
Very interesting to me. There's not a clear favorite here in this one, Bill. I think other people are going to talk about, hey, this is an old Oregon State team versus a super young Utah team. And to me, in neutral floor situations in Vegas, that's an advantage for Utah. They don't have a ton of pressure on them, and they can just ball out. What I thought was interesting, you mentioned they split. I thought their split was kind of a microcosm of Utah's season, in the fact that, they beat Oregon State at home by 12 points, and then they lose to Oregon State by almost 20 points, right, 19? So that 31-point swing kind of defines what Utah has been at home versus on the road. They did a really nice job when they did win. Bill, if you remember the game in Salt Lake, they really made Trace Tinkle work for everything. I think he only made like 5 or 6 shots.
Yep.
But it was a grind for him. I mean, there were 2 bodies on him. They didn't allow him to get to the offensive glass. They didn't allow him to live on the free throw line. Those are the kind of things, those details with Trace Tinkle that you have to pay attention to, because he is a guy that can drop 25. But if you're really focused on what you're doing, I don't think he should drop 25 on you. Another guy, though, that they have to keep an eye on is Ethan Thompson. So Ethan Thompson's been playing out of position. He's not a true point guard, but he's been Oregon State's point guard all season. He has good size. He dealt with a shooting wrist injury for a couple of weeks, and his shooting numbers went down. But Ethan Thompson is an excellent all-around player. Not quite as athletic as Booth Gotch, but that matchup, if they guard each other, will be fascinating because Booth's way more athletic, way more wild, but Ethan Thompson is a better shooter. He's got a nice floater in the mid-range and a better probably all-around defender. But I think the winner of that matchup will definitely give his team a nice advantage in the game.
See, to me, in the game up at Eugene, it was the other guys who did the damage. Trace Tinkle only had 11 up there. Ethan Thompson had 13, but Zach Reichel had 10. Lucas had 8. Hollins had 5 in that game. Kyler Kelly had 16 in that game. That, to me, Utah's got to do a better job on those others. Slow those other guys down, but you can't have those others you can't have 2 of the others going for double figures.
Sure, but yeah, I just think that Utah, when they played at Oregon State, they looked exhausted.
Yeah, they did.
Get some rest. Yeah, they looked flat. They looked exhausted. It was kind of the same thing with when they played, I think, USC. It was a grind-out game, and they just looked tired. So, Utah, get your legs underneath you. They've been a pretty good defensive team at times. But then, this is high-level analysis for you, Bill. Utah's got to make some shots. They got to make some shots on the perimeter, to be specific. I mean, and that's not, any surprise, but, on a neutral floor, young team, I'm looking in the first 5 to 10 minutes. Is there a spring in Utah's step? Are they tough on D? And can they get a nice little rhythm to start? That's what I'm looking for. And if they can do those things, absolutely. I wouldn't call it an upset, really, right? Because they both have the same record. But, talking about experience, I think a lot of people would view a Utah win over Oregon State in the first round as an upset, just because there's a lot of Utah Utes that have never been in that situation before.
Is Oregon a definitive favorite in this tournament for you?
Yes, and yes, and yes. I mean, this is an Oregon team that is they're dynamic on defense. My biggest concern, Bill, they don't have rim protection. They don't have a Kenny Wooten who left last year and shouldn't have left last year would have been amazing for them because they don't block shots at the rim like they have the past 2, 3, even 4 years. But this defense, when they score and they can set up that 3/4 court trapping, heat up the basketball D, that's how they beat Stanford. They're good. If you can get Oregon in a half court game, their defense is just okay. It's all right. And Stanford shot, I think, almost 50% and still lost by 10. But Oregon is one of the best offensive teams in the nation, Bill. They have dynamic players, not just Peyton Pritchard, but the way Will Richardson is playing has been awesome to see. And they're doing some of this without Chris Duarte, who for a stretch of the season was one of the best complementary players in the conference. He was stealing the basketball. He was shooting threes, but he's out with a broken finger. I have no idea when he's going to come back, if he's going to come back. But this is an Oregon team that has more firepower than any team, and it's not close in the Pac-12.
Are you a believer in 7 teams, or when Sunday rolls around, do you think it's more like 5 or 6?
Yeah, I think it's more like 5 or 6. I do want to live in reality. Stanford is one of those first 4 in teams right now. They need a win. And so, UCLA would certainly do themselves a favor by getting a win as well. But Stanford's playing Cal. Stanford got Cal in the first round. Those two teams split. It's a rivalry game. I mean, as a Stanford alum, I don't feel super great about it. And then if Stanford wins, they get UCLA in the next round. So, all teams, Arizona State, Stanford, UCLA, all 3 of those teams really should feel like they need at least one win to feel good about themselves. And the reality is not all 3 of them are likely going to win.
How Pac-12 would it be if UCLA lost in the opening round and then finished second in the league but don't make the tournament?
It would be very Pac-12. I mean, it still would be better than what happened in 2012 when the Washington Huskies won the regular season championship and still didn't make the NCAA tournament. So short of that, it would be that would be disappointing. But I want to see the Bruins, and I think there's a lot of people that don't even follow the Pac-12 that have followed UCLA's story a little bit and would love to see how the Bruins fared in their first year under Mick Cronin in the NCAA tournament.
Do you feel good about San Diego State still, or have they been figured out? Or have they hit a
no,
wall?
I feel really good about them. Look, it's a long season, and I didn't think they were going to run the table. And you can go back and look at my Fox Sports studio shows about that. I never predicted them to go undefeated. Am I a little concerned that they look really pedestrian in the last couple of games? Sure. But I have seen them at their peak, Bill, and they're not injured. They have dudes. Like Malachi Flynn's still there. Matt Mitchell's still there. Wetzel, their big guy, still there. I think that they play both ends of the floor as well as any team outside of Kansas and Baylor, Duke, and Michigan State maybe. Like they're a team that can play multiple styles and multiple tempos. I'm absolutely not jumping off the Aztec bandwagon right now.
What do you expect in the West Coast Conference? You got BYU and St. Mary's tonight, USF and Gonzaga. You expecting a BYU-Gonzaga rematch?
I am, or at least I'm hoping. Look, BYU is playing St. Mary's, and anytime you play Jordan Ford, it's a roll of the dice. I mean, what he did in the previous round, he hit a 30-footer on a double team to clinch the win. Okay, so Jordan Ford is dangerous. He's like him and Kobe Ross, the little kid from Pepperdine. They're out of it now, but those are two dangerous players that if you let get rolling, you're playing in a completely different basketball game. But all things equal, BYU is a better basketball team, has been throughout the course of the season, and I want to see what Gonzaga has in store for a revenge game against BYU, because you remember the last time that those two teams played, BYU played one of the best games I've seen from them, and I want to see if they can do it again. I really do.
We usually at this time of year, Casey, see shooters impacted most, guys that are deep shooters by new arenas, tournament time. It usually takes them a second to adjust. Is there any advantage for Utah having played and beat Kentucky in that building earlier this year?
Sure. I am absolutely a big believer, as a former shooter myself, I'm a big believer that these big, unfamiliar NBA style or just unorthodox venues mess with shooters. I believe that. I also believe sometimes they unwrap these brand new basketballs, right? And nobody's played with them. They're slick. They're weird. And so people are missing shots that they wouldn't normally make. So, yeah, I give a team like Utah, who has some experience in the gym that other teams don't. It's a slight advantage. But let's not get carried away. It'll play a role. Let's not get carried away. You still win with the Jimmies and the Joes, not the X's and the O's, and not the arena.
He'll be in Los Angeles this week and not in Las Vegas, but you can catch him on Fox Sports 1 with plenty of Pac-12 and college basketball analysis from the studio. One of our friends, Casey Jacobson. I'm going to try that secret pizza place this week.
Yeah, make sure you send me a picture so I can get jealous.
Okay,
have a good time out there.
Thanks, Case.